Welcome to this world of scratching. I'm not scratching yet, but I'm making this little video, this improvised video, painting with ink on a special kind of paper called Terraskin. Now, Terraskin is a paper that's made without any kind of wood. There's no tree in this paper. It is minerals and a synthetic binder, I think, as far as I can remember. I bought this I had a large sheet of Terraskin 2 years ago to experiment with, and it didn't fit with what I wanted to do, so I left it on my shelf of papers. And only tonight did I pick it up again, and I'm really glad I did, because I discovered by trying things. I'll put this away for now. Let it dry over there. That if you go back onto a sketch that you made over this paper, you can use a scratching tool, just like this. This is the same kind of tool you get for, alongside the pen nibs at the art supply store. Speaking of pen nibs, I have one right here. You dip in ink and you draw with it. Well, the same company, Speedball, makes those. So this one I've had for many years and it still works. So you can go back over your dry ink drawing and do some lines, and curves and highlights and everything you want. Like right now there's a little weird, hooded character in this shadow here that I saw in the stains, and I can scratch him into existence. It's going to be very tiny, so you won't see much, but I'm not doing too much detail on this, so hey, maybe it's just someone in a snowsuit. Looks like that too. See what I mean? So this is really powerful stuff. You can do, not the drawing itself, but the technique. You can add some eyes in there. Make it more mysterious and maybe a bit creepy. But this is very liberating. So this paper is called Terraskin. It is made mostly of minerals. There's a little bit of binder in it, and like I said earlier, I think, and it's very durable. You can scratch it and repaint, and scratch it and repaint. You can make a black surface like this. This one's going to be a bit more difficult to see because I did apply too thick an application, so it's a bit glossy. But you can totally do, wild designs. I call this piece of art Struggle Against Yourself. It's difficult because you're trying to win against yourself. Good luck. I think it's a tie. Damn it, it's a tie. So I call this Struggle Against Yourself. Just wanted to show you that it scratches, but didn't have anything to draw, so why not? I don't want this to be boring. I just wanted to show you how black and how white it can get. I prefer the subtle stuff. So we have this more simple illustration here, and I've already started to do some highlighting on it. For example, if I wanted some more patterning on the table, I would do something like that. Might be enough for some people. I could decide to crisscross just one out of two, creating sections. So it looks like the table has a pattern on it. I could go back with ink and darken some areas. You don't have to have the scratcher, by the way. You can use a pen knife, hold it at an angle. And in this case, because of this paper and how thinly I'm applying my ink, this seems to work even better, even smoother, and even harder what I need it to be than the scratcher. I don't even know what the scratcher is called. I messed up my direction, my orders, by the way. 1, 2, 3. This one should have been, I skipped one, but that's okay, who's counting? But yes, you can go back and not only highlight things, but create textures and patterns, like in his hair, for example. It's very hard to do this with paint, but with Scratchboard, it's a natural property of it. His collar is a bit black, so now I'm very rusty with scratching. I haven't done it in 2 years, so give me a break. But at the same time, you can see I'm enjoying myself. See those crazy textures? But that's just one possibility. I got this guy from earlier. I made several takes of this video. I'm getting quite tired actually. But actually this was done when I first bought this paper 2 years ago. But earlier tonight I did some modifications to it just to show texture and highlights. So once again, I could actually go for hours retexturing this, which I won't do, but just so you get an idea, you could create really subtle skin textures, at least directions in the sculpture of this character. You can create wet spots and dark spots with more ink. That's the beauty of this technique. You can go back with ink and erase the scratches that you didn't like. There's a scratch on his nose right now that is bugging me. I'll just paint over it. Here's no problem. Speaking of no problem, there are great advantages in having tools that work really well, and I need to speak a little bit about these. This one I have is called a Pentel Pocket Brush Pen. I love it. It's the most durable, fine-pointed brush I've ever had. I loved it so much that I bought another one. So now I use one for pure black and one for a light gray to do some shading with. And the advantage of these is that the synthetic tips are really long lasting. I've had one for at least 7 years and the other one 3 years earlier. And I can't tell the difference between the two. That's how durable they are. They come with cartridges that are removable and replaceable. I recommend to buy one package of cartridges alongside your first brush pen, but keep all the cartridges even when they're empty, because you can refill them with a syringe and whatever ink you choose to use. I choose to use a permanent ink for inside of these brushes, so that's why I'm not using them on here yet, because I'm not sure of these lines. Everything else in here is water soluble ink, otherwise known as China ink. This one is from China. The brand is Zhong. I've heard people call it Chonghua. I don't know how it's exactly pronounced. I'd like to be able to, so if somebody knows how to pronounce it, please tell me. But I think it's Zhonghua, or as close to it as possible. It's made from carbon and gelatin, and I like it. I used it for many years, and it's very reliable. It's not permanent though. If as soon as you wet it again, it's gonna get wet again. It's gonna move around again. So for this, it's an amazing property, because if I mess up, if I want that sky to be lighter, I'll just put water there and wipe it off, like I will here for that extra piece of foliage that I find a little bit too much. We might discover that it doesn't work. I haven't done it for this paper yet. It does, it works. See this foliage that's forming? Didn't even touch it with my brush yet. I just wanted to simplify the sky a bit. Bonus. Always. You try things, you might discover something. I just thought there was some darkness missing here, so let's add some. Let's be a bit nervous. Let's make that line a little bit uneven and unpredictable. It's gonna look all the better, all the more natural. So it's a mess, I'm aware of that, but it's a beautiful mess. And when I'm done with it, it's gonna look like a finished painting, if I ever finish it. For example, this tree now, is it still a little bit wet here? Nope, that's just an accumulation of ink. There's a tree trunk here, and I want some highlights. I want to redefine that shape. I want to show where the light is, and I want to show it now. You can't stop me, it's my world. So, totally stole that from Bob Ross. It's your own little world. I have to give credit where credit is due. Bob Ross, when I was a child, his show was on PBS, even in Canada where I live, and I really loved what he did, and so did my father, and we watched the episodes sometimes. I really wanted to keep watching and learn from him once I got my painting kit. It's all I wanted for Christmas, and I eventually got one, and as soon as I got the paint kit, oil paint, I realized that PBS stopped showing Bob Ross in my area, and I only had one episode, a partial recording of an episode on an old VHS tape. So I watched it over and over again to try to catch as much information from it as I could. And I did, but and I did start from that. I still have one of those first paintings, and I'm really grateful for that show to have been on the air, because that was the only way for me at the time to get a taste of painting. So the joy of painting is my first teacher, Bob Ross. And nowadays I do ASMR videos for fun and relaxation, and I'm still referring to him for that, because some people call him, you know, as one of the forms of ASMR, even though back then ASMR did not even have a name. But talking very softly while doing art, you know, being motivational, it triggers a lot of people, including myself. So you're starting to see that tree come to life, you know, it's showing up. I'm going to start texturing in a circle or with, you know, angles, curves as I scratch, so it will look more 3D. I'll bring it to one side so you can hear it better. I still haven't figured out how to use this microphone to the maximum effect of 3D sound. It's not a 3DO, it's a Zoom H5. It's really good quality when I walk around outside with it, or when I need to record myself for straight on voice work, but as a stereo thing, ear whispering and such, it's a little bit of a challenge because of the XY microphones. They're crossed, you know, they're crossing each other. There's no shape between them, there's no head, there's no space for a head, so you gotta imagine that there is. You gotta aim at the right exact angle to try to whisper in somebody's ear. Of course, now I just had to hide the camera, which is another problem. So for drawing, I'll have to figure out a better way. Right now I'm holding it, you know, I'm hanging it above my table using a microphone stand. It's good, it's just not great. In the future, I want one of those. Maybe I'll get one of those earbuds, binaural microphones that are earbuds. So I'd be the head. You would hear what I hear when I'm drawing. I could get to the paper, as close to the paper as I want. And, well, I could still hide the camera. You see this? This is what I'm talking about. I'll show you even better here. And right now I'm just using the scratcher. It doesn't scratch as boldly and as harshly as the penknife, but it's a beginning. Starting to shape those rocks. Showing where the light hits them. And it's bringing them forward. as opposed to subdued in the shadows, disappeared and lonely. Now they're a group into the light. In the future, I'd like to make a super large one, so that when I work on the left, I'll be really on the left, far away or up close, and the contrast of being on the right will really show a difference. Ooh, I just had an idea. How about using those binaural earbud microphones separately on the table, on the drawing itself? That could work. Maybe they would have their own individual stands, of course, so they don't roll around, but you could put a piece of clay underneath them or something. Then it wouldn't be cumbersome. You'd still see them, but they wouldn't be big enough to be a problem. Can't afford them right now, but we'll see when I can upgrade, and I'd love to try that. Heck, somebody please try it. Show us. Hear us. I mean, let us hear the difference. Do a drawing video. If you have a binaural, those small binaural earbuds microphones. They're like headphones, but they record, so that your listeners will hear exactly what you heard when you did whatever you did, or when you went wherever you went. That's why I want some of them, because, well, first of all, they're probably a lot less cheap than, less expensive, I mean, than the dream microphone for ASMR artists. You all know what I'm talking about. This Free Space by 3DO. Everybody's got one now. You know, in the ASMR community, the people who have more experience, sometimes less, but you know, most of the experienced ones seem to have that one. And I can tell you that whenever I see 3DO in the title, I want to listen. I'm expecting quality. It's become a synonymous, you know, technically speaking. It depends on the content, of course. You know, I'm a big fan of role plays, specifically, and there's a good story to it. If it's very immersive, then that's what gets me every time. Like Heather Feather, for example. She's by far my favorite ASMR artist, and she invests herself so much in her videos. It is an inspiration to see. I almost gave up tonight making this video because I was having trouble with my previous method of scratchboarding. It was too glossy. I just could not light it properly. And then I figured out, you know what? It might just be a question of changing my substrate. And that's what happened. I got this paper out of my storage and realized, wow, this is it. It works. And now you're seeing it. These rocks look like they're floating. Maybe they are. I don't know yet. There's another rock here I never noticed before. He's a sneaky little bastard. So let's get some ink. The ink in this little dish next to me has dried, but again, it's one of those rewettable inks. So you can carry this with you. You can put some in a little container, and even if it dries out, you add a bit of water. Traditionally speaking, there were some brushes that were made for travelers. I forget the name of them, and I even forget if they were Chinese or Japanese, but boy, I'm trying to remember. It sounds a bit like Yatta, but it's not. Yatate? I'm not sure, it might be. But they were brushes that were inserted into a container that looks like a long tube. The end of the tube has a reservoir of ink. The ink is absorbed and held by a ball of fabric. I think it's cotton, but I'm not sure. So that it doesn't spill, because it's held there in place, you know, by the fabric. And when you need ink, you press into the fabric and it gets into your brush. And when you're done drawing or writing, calligraphy or something, then you put your brush back in the handle. I think it has its own strap or something, or not. Looks a bit like a strange pipe. I've seen several models actually. I'd like to try one day. Maybe I'll make one. I don't know. I'm an art materials geek, but I don't have time to develop anything these days. I shouldn't even be doing this. I'm enjoying myself way too much. No guilt. I'll just face the consequences later. But yeah, I gotta take a break sometime. So once again, I get carried away with detailing, but once I see something happening, it's hard to resist. Enabling it. Look at that. Little rocks are popping everywhere. So I'll put my brush aside again, go back on my scratch, ink tool, and reveal more. So there was this. And again, if you don't like something, you can go back, erase it with more ink, or highlight more. You don't have to detail everything. A few bits here and there, and bam, you have something that works. I forgot that some areas are still wet, and I smudged a few. But that's okay, I got this texture out of it. Might be some kind of moss. I don't know. For this, it's good to get into the habit of letting it dry before you go on. If I wasn't recording this video, I could just use a bit of my hair dryer, but it would really blast into this microphone, so I'm not doing that. It's very cartoony right now. Maybe not cartoony, but graphic novelty, perhaps. It's all these little cross hatchings and washes of color. And when I'm done, it's going to be a bit different than that. But I don't even know what it's going to look like exactly when I'm done, because this one is a unique piece. It's improvised. There's a lot of it that I don't understand yet. It's coming together as I do it. I ask emotional and intellectual questions without words. They just happen. I get my answers as I see the results. Should I do this? Should I do that? Is this what I should do? I don't need to verbalize them. They just happen. It's more like an instinct. And the more you do this sort of thing, the easier it gets. You know, you don't need to ask them out loud anymore, or even in your head. It just goes. You make decisions at a split second. Like, should I do a little white bump here? Why not? My answer is usually, why not? Try it. Find out. It's almost as if I'm adding white. I am, but I'm removing, I'm scratching things off. It's kind of like magic. It's hard to explain exactly why this is so pleasant, but it is. And in this case, you don't scratch just in the black, you scratch in the gray. It texturizes, and brings into focus. Heck, I could have decided that only the tree is detailed, everything else will become a fog. I may yet do that again. Once the highlights are done, wherever I need them or think I need them, I can go back and make them subtle by doing a little bit of a 25 to 25 or less percentage of black, and that really makes things go back. Right now everything is standing out. I don't yet know which. I'm thinking this is the main tree for the subject. You know, once I shade and light everything, we'll find out what this is about. Like right now there's an interesting thing going on here. I'm not too sure about. I don't know what it is, but this might be a magic portal, you know. I like my paintings and drawings to be fantasy, so maybe this is an entrance to fairy, the world of fairy. Maybe that's why these white spots there are so bright. Heck, I'll brighten them up. I'll add more with a penknife because he's more powerful that way. Maybe these particles are coming out, getting bigger as they're closer to us. Maybe these are fairies in energy form, ready to swarm. Make a big one here. It's good to hold the knife at an angle so that you're not cutting into it, you're just scraping the surface. Now, if I want those fairies to stand out, it would be good to create a few dark spots where they can really show against. Now, these are way too evenly spaced, so add some minor ones in between. Do small groupings of 1, 3, 5, or 7. I like to do groupings of uneven numbers. Now that's the angle if I want to really brighten a large area. Very, very flat. Lots of blade touches. So again, I'm not sure what's going on. I got this clue here, so I'm going to see what I can do with it. If I don't like it, I'll go back and erase it. There's no problem. Very forgiving. I was just hatching before, but now I'm cross-hatching. I'm going in another direction over the other one and helping shape these rocks and this tree. It's fun to think in terms of the whitest of whites, the darkest of darks, and the rest is just the middle ground. If you have 3 shades to deal with, it's much easier than having 25 or 250. You just go bit by bit. You add detail later, but if you can balance your drawing, your illustration, your painting with 3 shades or 3 values at first, the chances are you'll be able to add color later and it will still look good. But your composition all already made sense with very little value. 3. Black, white, and gray. That's it. I tend to get carried away too early, but somehow I manage. Because I love what I do. Things are really popping out. Show you zoom in. Come on, zoom in. I'm in focus. Again, a bit messy, but you're seeing a very, very, very close shot right now. When I look at it from a proper distance, it looks really nice. I'm already imagining silhouettes in those sparkles. Like this one in particular, looks like a little character is running. This one has got his arms extended. His or hers, I don't know. Maybe they'll tell us later. Tell us later, alligator. And once in a while, I will pop a stone here or there. I don't want just groupings that make sense. In nature, there's a whole lot of stuff that pops up out of nowhere. There's lots of randomness. Now, as I said earlier, I want some pure white stuff, you know, so make sure that some pure black stuff will look blacker. They work against each other. They need each other to be pure. And all the grays in between make all of them look more dark and more white. So I'm guessing the light comes from above, of course, on one side, on the left a little bit. But there's also light coming from that portal, if it remains a portal, of course. Like, what is it? What is it made of? I don't know. So I'll go back with the ink once again, and super fine brush. This one is a bit messy right now. I got some particles in my ink somehow. Let's try to figure it out. I see foliage, of course, so, but what kind? Where does it stop? Where does it start? It looks like a wreath a little bit. Maybe I'll just redefine it as such. It's kind of wreath-like formation. Keep picking up particles. Must be from all the scratching. If I don't like it, once again, I can go back and wipe it off, or dab it off, create a texture. Like, this is all texture from the dab. All, you know, it already creates the illusion of leaves. So I can go back and emphasize some of those lines, and then maybe learn from them and realize, oh, that's the texture I need for the rest of it. So let's continue that pattern, that organic logic. Let's remain nervous and not, you know, plan every stroke. Let's bulk up that bush completely to make a contrast with the pure white light. Let's not make it puny. Let's give it might. I was not planning on making an actual painting for this video, but that's what happened, and I'm glad it did. Because you see the power of this scratch much better this way, I think. And nothing prevents me from later scanning it and colorizing it in the computer without it looking like I did. You know, without it looking digitized or artificial. Nowadays, you know, more and more artists are understanding how to use the digital stuff without being stuck with the digital look. Like when I draw with the graphic tablet, I end up with something that looks a lot like pencil, or coloring pencil, or chalk on a rough paper. It's hard to tell that I did this, you know, not many people will be able to tell that it's made digitally, because I don't want it to look like the digital work. Some will look like that on purpose, but mostly I want something that looks natural. I use the digital tools to save time, be more efficient, and have more freedom in how I work. I can work on 25 layers without having to have 25 pieces of paper to deal with. I can start from a drawing on paper, and I love to. Sometimes I do, and then finish on a computer. And it's impossible to tell that I didn't do it all traditionally before I scanned it. See those stains, those almost thorn bushes? So I've been at this for 34 minutes and 50 seconds. It's pretty cool. Time flies when you're having fun, or as some reptilians might say, time's fun when you're having flies. So you don't have to define every single leaf. It's an illusion. It's a, you know, like these gray splotches represent foliage much better than I could draw every one of them. Like these branches are getting lost in nothing, so I probably need to go back and do some black over them so that, you know, they'll disappear behind the foliage instead of being above everything. So I do want stuff to disappear in the foliage. It creates the illusion of 3D. This is all foliage all around. I just haven't finished the grading of it yet. It's, you know, once you make it white, it stands out. Once you make it black, it might also stand out, depending. But when it's gray, it seems to fall back. That's what I'm doing now. I think that's a cat's whisker. Maybe that's a scratch off. Oh, that's a cat hair. I have a cat in here. She slept most of the day. I hope she's okay. She's my new roommate. Adopted her from outside. She just walked in one day, meowing at my door. I opened the door and I asked, "Hey, what do you want?" She said nothing. She just walked in. I was like, okay. It was bloody cold outside, so I let her stay. And the next day, I let her out, and she came back. So I adopted her. Once I knew that she didn't have any owners, I left a message on her collar. She had a little ribbon, actually. And somebody called me back and said, "Well, she's a street cat. I've been taking care of her outside all summer." So I was like, oh. She says, "If you want to adopt her, she's free." I said, okay. I was meaning to get a cat anyways. And it seems like she chose me, so that's cool. A nice, gentle soul, but when it's time to play, she plays rough. It's kind of a contrast. So I use a stick instead of my hands. I don't want to have bloody hands all the time. She likes the stick, actually. It's a nice toy I made. It's like a fishing pole with a string and a ball at the end, but the ball is made of wool. I made that out of needle felting, which I enjoy a lot. I'm starting in it, and it's a lot of fun. You can do crazy detail if you need to, and it creates a nice soft sculpture that cannot break. It's flexible too. Anyways, I made a very dense version of that for her ball, and so I can play with her with the ball at the end of the string. Sometimes I reverse it and I use the handle, and I tap on the bed and she just follows it and then attacks it. Then she likes to bite it. It's quite fun. And then I bury her under her blanket, and then she chases after it from below the blanket. I recommend that game. Some cats don't like being buried under a blanket, but she does. She loves it. So, try. If they hate it, don't do it again. You don't want to terrify your cats. Gotta respect the individual. So there were some suggested lines of foliage from all the dabbing earlier. So I'm drawing some of those. I'm starting to lose some depth, however, so I should watch out. Try to keep it very subtle. You don't have to draw a specific outline everywhere. It's a question of doing just enough for your brain to understand what's going on, and then, you know, it does the rest. Like, this is not fog, this is also part of the foliage. Although that line was a bit too geometric, so now I'm breaking it up. I've done this quite a bit with color in watercolor. But this is watercolor technically. It's carbon and gelatin. It's ink, but it's a water wash. And I can always go back and remove some add some. It is very handsome as a way of trying to rhyme. Look at that.
Is this where the fairies live?
Yes. They live everywhere.
Everywhere inside my shoes.
Everywhere. In the oven, when it's not working.
The computer?
In the computer, yes.
Wow.
I have conversations like that sometimes. It helps to make the voices, you know, differentiate the personalities. You make one up and then they kind of have a backstory that adds to itself, and you know, soon enough you find out that you're having conversations with some of your characters. As a puppeteer, it becomes easy. As a regular person who's not a puppeteer, it might sound a bit crazy, but that's okay too. Crazy. It's okay to be crazy and lonely if you choose to. Consensual loneliness is between you and the silence. So some of those branches are way too white. They just pop out too much. I'll have to go and bring some of them in the back, but liking this tree. Need to finish defining that foliage though. It's a bit messy. When I'm done, I'd love this to be confusing enough for some people to think it's a photo that's been treated. I've seen some old-fashioned black and white photos. Heck, I've taken some, and they kind of looked like this, because they were black and white and in a foggy day, and because of how I developed them, because it was a traditional photography class in college, the result was really moody, gray. There were even some crows in the sky, a whole murder of them. For those who don't know, a murder of crows is how you call a large group of crows. I don't even know if they have to be large, if the group has to be large. A group of crows is called a murder. Kind of scary. And for baboons, they called it a congress. Now that makes sense. Not that I want to mock baboons. They deserve more respect than they've been getting. You don't want to mess with baboons in the wild. That too. You know what? Talking to myself like this, I'm quite comfortable with it. Some of you might not be. So I'm thinking I should try to find someone to come and co-host a video. I haven't seen many of those ASMR videos with two people. Like really two people. I mean, Heather Feather is really good at making videos with herself. Like, she's got her other characters that she can put on the screen with her, thanks to, you know, chroma key and green screen stuff. But, you know, two artists at the same time, in the same room doing this for one video. I'd love to see that. Well, I have seen it. The ones I can remember are from a massage ASMR channel called, I'm trying to remember here, Psych Truth. Psych, P-S-Y-C-H-E. Psyched, maybe Psyched? I'm not sure. Psych Truth at least, and ASMR or massage, something like that. I'm going from memory and I'm tired, but look them up, you know, interesting videos. But, you know, role plays, what I'm thinking of is role plays with two performers. I'd love to see that and hear that. I have seen some hair salon videos that had, you know, a subject, but usually the subject is not shown. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since I watched it, but there was one where Veni Vidi Vulpes, she's one of the first ASMR videos I've ever seen, actually. After the one Lilium, which was my first, that was recommended to me by someone who knew about ASMR videos. Anyways, Veni Vidi Vulpes was doing one of those hair salon role plays, and if I remember correctly, she asked a guy friend, to sit in so she could actually shave him. So that's why the sounds were so good, if I remember correctly. Somebody tell me if I was wrong, but because I might forget to check after I make this video. But yeah, it's fun when we see an expansion of what's possible. You know, sometimes by yourself it's not easy to have all the options. Wow, the ink is drying in flakes and the brush is picking that up. I'm gonna put some water in there so that it will melt in advance for me. Hopefully that's a bonus little trigger for you. Let's try on the other side. Always spray away from the microphone. Just saying, you don't want to drown your circuits or damage it in any way. So I'll ask around. I have two friend actresses who could really be good at this. One of them is actually a voice artist. Like she can do film dubbing and stuff. I don't know if she'd want to do that as a hobby though. I'll ask. Might be fun. Heck, she might not know about these videos. Actors and actresses, they have stressful lives just like the rest of us. They probably would appreciate learning about ASMR. Heck, they could make videos themselves. Her husband and she, they have their own production company for TV shows and such. Maybe they could do that as an extra service. Wow, this tree is coming to life. I don't know if you can tell on your end, but you know what? I'm going to adjust the light now that I'm not dealing with. Oh, look at that! I'm not dealing with the other stuff, so I can see things better now. I'm trying to calibrate so you can too. You want to see subtlety, not just bright whites. You see? Now it looks like I used rusty inks. And it also looks ridiculous, but there you go. You gotta try sometimes. Try a little tenderness. Gotta be tender with your brushes. It can cost you a lot of money if you don't respect them, because they'll break down fast and you'll have to replace them if you want to keep doing it. There's a stain up there that I just killed. Let's try to bring some of it back. Beautiful. So I'm new to this whole ASMR making of videos, and I have a few now. I'm glad of some of the responses, but I'd like to have more. So if you're enjoying this, please tell me what specific aspects of it you enjoy, and if there are any that you don't, please tell me as well so I can improve. Only with feedback can I progress faster. I always question myself, of course, and find out what I preferred to do and maybe what worked and what didn't, but ultimately it's about other people watching. So if I have your feedback, I can make it better faster. I'm not saying I'm going to do all the suggestions, but the more I have, the more of a choice I have, and the more I can focus on what I think people want. It's all perceptual, of course, but I can't perceive if I don't get input. So this is not a complaint, it's just a request. If you have any preferences concerning this video, if you have anything that bugs you about it, tell me. I'm going to make other videos, and I want to do more of this. Not specifically exactly this, but other videos where I do I work a long time on a single image. Heck, I don't care if it lasts 3 hours, although it will take a while to upload. But yeah. For those who are interested in the technical aspect of things, I realized recently that you can save a lot of time uploading. I watched a video that explained it. They said to use Handbrake, which is a software for compressing videos and other things. It does several things, but I only use it for compressing so far. I'm curious to see what else it can do, but first you record your video, you edit it down into an MP4, for example, and then you go into a Handbrake and you compress it with, there are different ways of setting it up. I'm still discovering how, but my latest video took a fraction, a small fraction of the time that it usually does. I used to wait 6 or 7 hours if I wanted to have a 1 hour video online, sometimes more than that, because of the quality I wanted, and realized that it was too long, and I couldn't imagine people to do one video a week having the patience to do that all the time, wait, up to 12 hours for a 1 hour video to upload, and then it might even fail during upload and then you have to start again. That sounds too crazy for me. So I did some quick research and found out that some people have figured it out. It does reduce some of the quality, but by tweaking the settings, eventually you find out what sacrifice you can make so that it won't look like one. So look it up, Handbrake. There's a video that explains how to do it. I found it last week. I'll try to find it. If I don't remember, please tell me in the comments, and as a reminder, and I'll look it up and I'll post it in that comment as a reply. But yeah, I can upload a 1 hour video within an hour, within less than an hour sometimes, depending on what it is, but and what settings I used. I'm still discovering how it works, but I'm impressed. It's all about bitrate and quality level and sound quality as well. Of course, these are ASMR videos, and sound is really important. So I try to boost. I did boost my sound quality more than what the video person recommended, and I'm glad I did, because there was no loss. Actually, I did not compress at all. My last video did not compress the audio, just the video. The audio was source quality, so exactly the same quality that was recorded. Nice. This whole area here is a lot more busy than you see, so I'll show you closer. There's little subtle textures in the dirt. This actually reminds me, I know now where I've seen this before. This reminds me of the textures that I used to get when I was experimenting with drawing on slides. Like, I had some blank slides that I made from buying some empty frames for slide projectors. About the frames, I would fill them up with acetate sheets, little squares of acetate, rectangles actually, and I would draw with Sharpies and other alcohol-based inks into it, and I would do rubbing alcohol washers on top of that, and it would create textures like this. And then I would project it on the wall, and you would get this kind of effect. These fuzzied out areas, these sharp pitches of darkness, and beautiful contrast. And that's what I'm getting now. So it's fun to see that again without having to break out the slide projector. That thing is massive and loud. Oh no. I've seen it and now I cannot unsee it. 2 eyes, a nose, and a smile. No, I don't want that. Not in this case. I have made landscapes with faces in it, but this one, definitely don't want that to be the case. So, other rock here. We'll get rid of it, hopefully. By creating shadow. There you go. It's a lot less obvious now. Don't be afraid to make these shapes cross each other. It looks a lot more natural this way. A lot more real. If they keep on being apart, you know, it doesn't create the illusion of depth. Which is what I want. I want depth. I just noticed that I haven't added shadows enough, so get a bit of a wash, a very light gray wash. Behind. It's not light enough. I'll make some here on the paper itself, since I don't have a large palette to work with. That's better. I could have used the brush, but you know, the brush pen, but I don't want to use a permanent one until I'm sure of where I want my shadows to be. If I want to make them more subtle, I can wipe them off later, so there's a lot more freedom. So add more. It's just like carving wood. I started carving wood and I was trying to chip away a lot at a time, thinking, who spends that much time, you know? So I kept on trying to remove big chunks of wood, and I would hurt myself, and because I would force it too much. I could cut myself because of the lack of control. Until I realized, small chips at a time. I saw a video that saved the way I did things, you know. Small chips at a time. It's better to do 25 little chips than trying to do the whole thing in one chip, you know? You get more control that way. And a lot less strain. You got something against trains? Not what I meant. Beautiful. It does tend to lighten up as it dries, so don't make it too light, or don't make it too dark. It's easier to add darkness, actually, than to remove it precisely. I mean, you can always remove it if it's a non-permanent ink, something that's water-soluble, as I said before, but it won't be easy to remove. Oh, there's a trick that I forgot to provide for, but might use in the future on this painting. Salt. While you have a wash that is still wet, you sprinkle some salt or shake some salt over it, and the salt will absorb some of the either absorb or chase away. I don't remember, it's been too long, but it does create a little nice splotchy texture, kind of like this here, kind of those little dots at the bottom here, but more pronounced than that. And yeah, salt does that. It's really nice. You want to use it with subtlety though, because a lot of people use that over the years, and it's kind of like a cliche of watercolors. But cliches can be used. You just have to use them in a way that won't make them cliches. Yeah, I won't use words in my next movie because words are cliche. That would be pushing the originality a little bit too much, I think. But, yeah. I'm rambling. I'm realizing that. I'm trying to avoid it. Maybe I should do some scratching for a change. Let's create a bit more contrast here first, because it became a splotch of uniform gray for a while. This perfectly soothing is uniform gray. There are no bearings to the day. I think that would be Sarah Harmer, but I'm not sure. I've heard that years ago. A roommate of mine had the album, and I ended up listening to it a lot. On purpose, sometimes, I admit. Hey, you like it, you play it. That's what I say. Nice. Kind of looks like lightning. Black lightning. Is that a trigger? Should I make a video of that? Let me know. I usually stop at 1 hour. It's been 1 hour and 1 minute. But I'm liking this too much. After all these takes, tonight I did several videos. This is by far the best. In terms of visuals, I love what I'm doing right now. I haven't enjoyed an improvised ink drawing like this in months. Now, this floor is a bit of a mess, as everything was when it first started, but it's going to require a bit of texturing. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll leave it fuzzy, but we shall see. I sprayed a bit in here and it caused a little bit of a chaos, which I'm fine with. I'm imagining, whenever I work with a brush like this, I'm reminded of, not always, but sometimes, reminded of the very meticulous people who did photo retouching back in the days of traditional photography. I mean, wow, they had to go with watercolors, special kinds of inks and watercolors to do exactly what I'm doing now. Like, you go back into an area and either edit something out or add something in. Like remove dust marks and remove a person from a portrait, for example, and then replace them with the foliage that was behind them. You know, by becoming really good at simulating natural textures. I'm not that good, but I can definitely admire what they did. I've even tried some of their watercolor inks. One kind that was made supposedly for that at first, or at least was suitable for it, is the watercolor cardboard kind of. It's called trying to remember the name of the brand. Peerless watercolors. I actually spoke to the owner back a few years ago because I wanted to know about if they could sell me the bottles that they sold for the smallest size of their inks. And he said no problem, so one day I'm gonna get some. I ended up not needing them at the time, but now, you know, the project fell off, but I'm thinking of getting some for travel-sized watercolor kits if I want to go with the inks instead of the cakes. But anyways, it turns out that the person who replied to me was the owner, and he told me about how he bought the company from the previous guy who bought the company for someone else. And, you know, throughout the owners, the company kept the same stock, you know, from, you know, generations ago. So the same pigments that you bought, when I called him at least, were, you know, 50 years old or more, you know, still from the huge quantity that was originally bought at the warehouse. So I thought that was fascinating. These things don't get you know, as long as they're powders. I'm not sure about the liquids, but once they're diluted, I don't know. But if you keep them safe, if you keep them dry, those pigments can probably last for hundreds of years. Like watercolors, if they're done on an acid-free paper, and if the watercolors themselves are, you know, archival quality, if they're the good stuff, then the final drawing and the final painting of watercolor can last hundreds of years, as long as you protect it from moisture. Put it in a frame, and don't keep it in a bathroom. You should be fine. Of course, if you live in an area that is very wet, you might want to take other precautions, but I love watercolors. I love ink washes as well. Now, because this ink is water soluble, I would not be able to color this directly with watercolors. But like I said earlier, I can scan this in to the computer and do some digital coloring that will look just as good. Different, but just as good. I'm seeing that the ink is resisting. I mean, the paper is resisting the ink. There must be some leftover skin oils from my hands. I did wash these sheets before with some alcohol, but it just so happens that I'm touching it as I'm painting, so I might have transferred a bit back. So you'll see that I only work with the tip of the brush mostly, and I barely dip it. Sometimes I just go back in my water bucket and grab some water to dilute what's already in my brush. That helps create subtle shading. It doesn't make pure blacks anymore, it makes grays. Like this rock in the back will disappear once I dab it, of course. Not disappear, but I just brought it down behind the main two branches there. I can do the same with this one here. Dab, dab. I just made it medium gray. I can do the same with this one. It seems difficult for the ink to stick to the scratched white lines until you dab it. Dab, dab. Dab, dab. Okay, I'm getting a bit delirious. Some people like that. My filters are kind of off when I'm tired. So. I forgot all about the doorway from, you know, where the fairies are coming from, so keep working there a little bit. Thankfully, I did not announce what I was doing, just in case, you know. I'd rather do it and then announce it. I don't want people to expect it and then be disappointed, so. But now, you know, I was thinking this was going to be all about the scratches, but there's going to be some scratches there. There has been, but it's mostly about painting. A wash, you know, an ink wash drawing, painting. With several sounds. I'm not even sure you can hear the brush marks on the paper. Most of them is just very subtle slides. Like this you might be able to hear, but I doubt it. Actually, this you might. When I go slightly against the tip, which I shouldn't do. These brushes are precious. They should not be forced to go forward. You always drag back away from the tip. Otherwise, you can really damage your tips. You can make them frayed and split. And I don't like that. I like that there's no rectangular frame around it. I made sure to not go all the way to the borders. And I like having a bit of extra space around my drawing, or painting in this case. And sometimes that's the way it's presented. Sometimes you frame it, of course. This is dangerously close to the borders for my tastes, but I think it will be fine when I cut it, or if I ever frame it. So far, I'm really impressed with this paper. It's called Terraskin. And I'm impressed with this brush. This is the first elaborate painting I've done with it. I've used them before. I have a set of 5, and I really like them, but something this finished, it's not finished, but you know, this advanced compared to the quick sketches I normally do, or take time to make. You know, this really gives me an example of how good these brushes can be. Some people say, well, the artist makes the art, not the tool, but I add, well, if you have the proper tools, you're not as limited. This is definitely a fine brush. I could actually do more subtle work than my previous favorite brush, which was of course, the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen that I've also used on the other pieces tonight. But this is wonderful. I don't even remember if I did some of the Pentel brush pen on this specific piece. I hope I didn't, because, well, it wouldn't be such a big deal, but I'd rather be able to say that this is all China ink. If I'm not sure, I'll just say China. I'll just say ink washes. So pure darkness, just to frame it, because there is pure darkness in this tree, and these bushes are dark gray. But I want some other areas of pure black, or as black as I can make it with this ink. In this case, very black. It's carbon. To me, carbon black is usually a warm black, a warm gray. I've seen some carbon blacks that were really cold, but I think they might have had something else in them. So much fun to discover what's happening. The little stories unfolding right in front of us. And those highlights on this side of the tree, they're way too strong. I'm going to grab some of that ink, some of that water, make another wash on the side here. I should have a scrap piece of this paper, actually. That would be nice. But anyways, I'm gonna darken this side of the tree mostly, and then I'm gonna dab it. Maybe we're just standing out too much. Yeesh. Guess that wasn't enough ink on my brush. It just disappeared when I dabbed. Now that's better. Beautiful. If you want to hear someone who talks a lot like, beautiful, look at this. If you're into sculpting, the videos on the Stan Winston School of Character Arts are fantastic, because they hire the best artists that they can find, people who work in the movie industry and toy making industry and such, and they make fantastic instructional videos. I know, because I subscribed for a month last summer, and I learned a lot, and that is the best deal I've ever seen for someone who wants to learn a lot in a very short period of time. It costs $50 US to have a 1 month unlimited access to their website, to their videos. You can watch as many of them as you want, as many times as you want. And Don Lanning specifically is the one I'm referring to. This guy, fantastic sculptor, very entertaining as he explains and as he tells stories around how he learned this trick or where he got this tool, who gave it to him. And he's extremely motivated and motivating when he speaks. So look at this, beautiful. Ah, yes. You know, it's fun to watch. It's fun to learn with him. So I watched his, you know, all his videos so far. Well, at the time, they might have put more there now. But, yeah, highly recommend those. He's got several tricks I've never heard of. Of course, they keep finding new ones and sharing with each other. You're working for the same company, and you see that your colleague is not, you know, doing so well, or you might be doing better if you give him your trick. So you give him your trick. You know, it's that easy. It just makes sense. Maybe not everybody shares, but I'm hoping that most of them do. Another one who's fun to watch is Jordu Shell, but he's definitely not calming. he's definitely a jester. Like, we're talking Robin Williams of the sculpting world. So, very entertaining to watch and to learn from in a different way than dotlining. Wow, I wasn't thinking of reviewing some instructional videos, but you see where the mind goes sometimes when I'm letting myself get lost in this. So there's this perfectly straight line there that I didn't notice before, and it's a little bit annoying. Might have been just me touching it with my brush at one point, but it's gone now. I've discovered something recently about YouTube that I'm really happy about. You can choose your thumbnail. So, in the past it would give you 3 choices of frames that you could pick. Some people found a way around it and were able to post whatever they wanted. But now it's actually an option. You can actually upload the picture you want. If I remember correctly. I saw that last week. So I will try to upload this picture as the thumbnail for the video. And I'll post a link in the comments so that people can see it the way it looks like now. You know, bigger on the screen. Although you might be watching in full screen, I'm only recording this at 1280 by 720 pixels. So if you have a big screen, you might appreciate to see it even bigger. So I'll post it on Facebook for starters. We'll see how big it gets on your screen, but yeah. It is a lot more rich than you think. I mean, right now I can't really tell because I'm working from a preview window. But once I do the test, once it's finished recording, once I see the quality, I'll know. I did some tests before I recorded, but there's always something that happens to change these things. Like, I did change the camera angles and distances. There's a whole lot of dirt going on there that I'm a little bit against. Unless I darken everything else in here, that might make more sense. So let's do this. It will make the fairies stand out more. Trying to be uneven a little bit. Dab, dab, dab. It's better to be a bit subtle about it first. I like that. I just decided that this is a hill, so I'm gonna have a shadow here. Heck, we may even have little burrows. This is what I meant earlier about texturing the ground. I'll redo the scratches on the highlights later, but this is nice. I'll darken that part too. might have said earlier, I don't remember, but you push it back, you bring it forward. Marvelous. Beautiful. Look at this. Did you ever think it would look like this when you first started looking? Nope, I didn't. Almost hallucinating colors in there yet already. Now, I'm not saying I will color it, but it might be a fun thing to do digitally. I have yet to master any specific technique for this, so it might be a good exercise. I'm sure Photoshop can handle it. It's just a lot of the coloring jobs I've seen, they just look fake. You know, which it is. It's fake. It's you know, it's a representation of nature, but there's a specific, what I call specific Photoshop look. You know, the colors are too smooth, they're too precise, or they're too fuzzy. Actually, there's a special kind of fuzz that helps me detect if a picture is digital or not. Some people are really good at avoiding that look, which is good, and that's what I'm trying to do. But when I color this, if I color this, I want to make darn sure that, you know, it won't look like it's been photoshopped. I've colorized some pictures before in the appearance of those old movies that were done like that. Like, if I'm not mistaken, The Wizard of Oz might have been colorized. But the colors are usually bleached out a little bit, so that's a telltale sign, I guess. This is one of the most complex landscapes I've made in a long time. All these rocks and roots and bushes. Speaking of bushes, this needs definite help. Yeah, that branch was a mess, but now it's not. If anybody of you are asleep right now, welcome to my world. If you're not asleep yet, but are really about to fall out of your chair, I do recommend you press pause, or actually I recommend you shut down the whole computer, especially if it's in your bedroom. You need the peace and quiet more than you know. Me, every night I shut down the computer, I feel a great wave of release and relief. Sometimes during the day I shut it down when I need to go out, do some shopping. Even if I'm just going to be out for 20 minutes, it's like, hey, that's just 20 minutes of not wasting electricity. That can make a difference if more people do it. Might as well start with me. But it's also a break with sound. It doesn't sound as, you know, as loud for my cat when I'm gone. She's still here, so thinking of her as well. Even before I adopted her about 3 weeks ago, I still shut down the computer when I left most of the time, unless an important download was happening. I know people who leave their computers on for weeks at a time, and I don't understand that. And some of them complain how, you know, sluggish the computer is. Maybe it's got some stuff. Maybe it's got some issues accumulated. Reboot once in a while. It might help. So I thought to myself earlier that I should stop at 1 hour 30 minutes. This will make the longest video I've made for my ASMR channel. Not bad. Not that it's a contest, but I want to see what people prefer. I haven't done well, I have one very short video, a lullaby. I speak first and then I sing it. I like it. It's called Ashabai Mountain. Got it from a movie called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It's a Disney movie. A very classic Disney movie that I recommend. It's got lots of fantasy and adventure. Dick Van Dyke plays in it. Same guy who played Bert in Mary Poppins. And of course, I forgot the name, but he played a doctor on TV for many years. It was his own show. He was a star of it. I think. Never watched it. So... still with the flakes of ink. Flakes of ink, flakes of ink. Let's do some scratching. No more flakes, excuse me. Is there any scratches that are necessary? So far I've scratched on the tree trunk. I've scratched in the portal. It's not yet obviously a portal, but when I'm done with it, people will know. People will know something's happening there. Heck, I could go back with some poster paint, white gouache, to be more precise, to highlight this better. That's another thing you can do. You come up with your own rules. So I'm creating some highlights on the foliage to make them 3D again. These are the spots where the light is hitting the leaves, groups of leaves, not just... My goodness, I have some ink on my hand that's transferring. I am going to rinse this out. Ooh. Sound. I've done a lot of online live broadcasts, so this feels too much like one, so I keep forgetting that I have a stereo microphone in front of me. Which should not be neglected. My online shows are mono. Oh, before you ask, if you want to show up at my shows, it's very casual. There's nothing like organized or anything. I just show up and broadcast whatever I'm doing in the studio. You can find me on iVlog, IVLOG. My artist name is Creaturist, CREATURISTE. That's what I use for my company name when I build puppets and masks and props. Right now I'm using Umbergnome for ASMR. I felt like having a separate account for that would be more practical and less confusing. Especially for my customers. What's he doing? That's not puppet building. Why is he talking in whispers? Who am I making business with? Don't worry, I'm not ashamed of what I do here. I just think that some people just won't understand, and that's okay. I'll explain if they want to know, but it's okay too. There's still a lot of work to be done on this one, but I'm so glad of whatever progress I've had. This stands out a lot because the rest is so dark. I don't yet know what this should look like. I think I'll have to go back and wash off some of the spots. It almost sounds like the dentist when they're scraping away the tartar for the teeth. Sometimes they really go hard at it. You can hear the metal fighting against the tooth enamel. Especially it's inside your head, so it does get a bit loud. Hey, who knows? Next time I go to the dentist, I'm gonna ask if I can bring my microphone in. Actually, I'm gonna bring it and ask them if I can record a session. That'd be nice. My dentist doesn't speak that much, so it would be mostly the sounds and the instruction he would give us. Us meaning all the listeners. I'd edit it, of course. I would reduce some of the noises to an acceptable level, of course. Wouldn't want to damage anybody's eardrums. Okay, I'm really officially in love all over again with Scratchboard. This is like cheating. This is a hybrid between Scratchboard and traditional ink drawings. But man, love it. Love the freedom of it. There's so much to be done in very little time. So much that can be done in very little time. I mean. And again, you can go back, modify as much as you want, as long as you don't go through the paper. But as I said earlier, this paper is very sturdy. It's as thick as some Mayfair board, but it won't tear as much, and it feels like plastic. But it's made of minerals. I don't know what minerals exactly, but I don't need to know to enjoy it. I hope they kept selling the stuff at the store. Last time I checked, they still had the large sheets, but these might be overstock from the last time. I bought some 2 years ago. I don't know, this store I go to is not very reliable in terms of keeping stock for a long time of the same stuff. You go back and you find out your favorite brush, they no longer sell it. Your favorite pencil, it wasn't selling often enough. There's a principle that you should know when you have a store. If people keep coming to the store and finding that you don't have what they need, eventually they won't come back anymore. If you keep doing that, you're going to lose your business. Stores should have a good inventory of the reliable stuff that people will need, you know, occasionally. You don't buy, you know, a pencil every day, the same pencil. You have a stock of pencils. Some people will buy a box. Most people will buy what they need for the product they have. That's what I do usually. I tried to explain that to the manager, but he didn't want to listen, which is sad. He's losing business. He's losing my business, among others. I go over there less often now. It's still the most convenient for me to go to, but you know, I have the stuff that I need most of the time. Not most, but some of the time. So I go downtown, go to another store, instead of going to the neighborhood where I do my groceries. little extra tree right here. A stump. Maybe another one here. I don't know. This is all new to me. Although I've done every single one of these steps before, bringing them all together in a system like this. Pretty exciting. I wonder what it looks like when you scan it. Sometimes those textures get emphasized. The scanner is not like a photo camera. At least not the ones I've tried. They're more like... they don't take a single picture, poof. They scan line by line, and the light stays there for a bit, you know. So there's a lighting effect that happens on... seems to happen on things that are textured. So all these lines are scratched into it, they might cast a shadow, you know, on one side of them. I don't know if that would show up, but let's hope not. Because that would be probably terrible to try to fix, even digitally. I still need to define that portal, but it's gonna be cool. If it remains that, you know, could be anything in the future. If it was the portal, it would have to be the brightest spot. All these would have to be toned down a tiny bit, including the highlights. Heck, this might turn out to just be a rock or a crystal. Love it. Love it nonetheless. You'll notice I'm not pressing as hard on the blade. I just remembered that this is how you get subtle results. I wish I did that for most of it, but I'll just make them more subtle with more washes. Because all the stones being the same bright white just becomes a bit old. So many flakes. Dabbity dab dab doob doob doob. There you go. Happy? We're going for 2 hours. I don't like to stop things before they're done. Or at least I don't like to stop between steps, you know, before a step is done. So I would have to define what a step is first for this, and then stop there, you know. But the sad thing is I did not, so it's a bit late to define what step I'm doing now. I keep doing back and forth. But I guess you know, bringing stuff back is probably the step I'm doing now. Those white lines really don't want to disappear. They keep popping up. It's like the ink doesn't want to stick to the raw paper anymore. That's better. By the way, you don't have to use, you know, big large pieces like that. You can twist it into a point, and that's what I should have done before you apply it, like this. Control. A warrior's weapon. Klingons do not paint. I don't think they paint. They must have some form of art. course, I lost a lot of detail in that trunk since I did that thing I just did. That's okay. Done it once, I can do it again. I got the power. By the way, this could be enough. You know, I could just scan this and then use the burn tool or even the regular brush tool to, you know, darken and lighten some areas. It's just I decided this was going to be a manual experience, a truly traditional approach with real tools you hold in your hands and real reactions. Not saying that digital is false, it's just different. There should be a very long limb right here that would explain the position of the furthest clump of foliage. Maybe I'll highlight some of it. In the past I would try to make trees and they would all look fake until, and really fake, I mean almost neglectful, until I realized that you just need to keep adding branches until it looks real. I had the, you know, the basic texture down. It's just branches need to get more numerous and smaller as they get to the tips of the main branches. The pattern repeats itself. Like you got 2 branches turning into 2 other branches, which turn into 4, which turns into 6, which turns into 8. It's pretty cool. Eventually you reach a level of complexity that makes it look real. Once, of course, you've understood the direction of the branches. But I don't have to think of it too much, especially if there's a lot of foliage on top. But definitely some stray branches in little opportune places will help create that effect. Like this here. There's a black, goes all the way behind this white one. You can probably see some of it when I zoom in like this. Hello. This camera is a bit confused sometimes. It can see my fingerprints. It can show you clearly my fingerprints. But sometimes a drawing or a sculpture, it struggles for some weird reason. Beautiful. It's a field of stones. Maybe that's the subject. Stones, sand, rocks, and trees. That's all I do in my landscapes. I forget sometimes about bushes and other kinds of plants and animals. I just do trees, rocks, and stones, and earth, of course. It's topsoil I need to study. I need to, you know, show that I understand what color it is and what texture it should be in different situations. Like wild vegetation here, for example. First time I put grass in there, all the others were roots. At least in my head. We're up all night to get painty. It's painty, alright. No longer looks like a drawing anymore. Although some will still call that an ink drawing. I call it a painting now because it's got less lines and more shades, more values. Still got outlines, but you know, those tend to disappear as I shade. Might decide to eliminate them altogether. No, I like the outlines. Well, justify their presence and I might keep them. Very well. The part of your past. Certainly. Let us blend the bush with the tree. Oh, look, a baby dragon. Not exactly. Spoil the sport. That tree's casting a shadow onto that area. Not towards us, but sideways. Lovely. Some people told me they get their triggers from someone doing something meticulous. It's not just the sounds, it's the visuals. So I hope this did it for them, because I am calm, so it did it for me. It's not necessarily a trigger for me in the sense of ASMR, but it's definitely relaxing. I'm not even monitoring myself. I don't have the headphones on, but I hear myself as I speak, and it's been a while, and it's repetitive, and I don't know, it's some way of me to relax, and yeah. If I had known about this when I was in school, I would have recorded myself painting giant paintings. That might have been a different approach. Not to say that I wouldn't. I still have one of those here. I should exploit my large easel once in a while, more than as a temporary wall, which is what I use it mostly for. My walls are full of shelves. That's where I put my supplies. So I bought an easel to put a wood panel on it, and it becomes a wall when I need one. It just stands in the middle of everything, taking up space. But, you know, as long as the project is on, I have a visual reminder that, hey, there's stuff to be done. If you want to get rid of this in your space, if you don't want to keep bumping your toes on this, get to work. It's a really nice motivator. Not so nice sometimes, but we live with it. One hour 47 minutes. Interesting. Funny how dark this looks on camera, while in real life it's not that dark. Maybe a sign I need to subdue it a bit. Is that even the right word? Subdue it? I'm thinking subtle, but that's not the word for it. I'm just distracted. I think the word is tone it down. There you go. Tone it down. Down, 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 down. Dun, 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 dun. That's totally off key. I know. Started on the wrong note. Down, 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 down. Dun, 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 dun. Close enough to stop. I'm gonna water the heck out of this, and then I'm gonna stamp the heck out of this, because I don't want foliage there. The dominant foliage is the big tree. These are mere bushes compared to its majesty. There you go. Next time I do something like this, I'd like to have a character in it. I don't feel courageous enough to put a character in there. Unless I found one hidden in there already. You know, within what's already present. If I put something to hide something in there, I might ruin the whole thing, and I'm enjoying this too much to cause that, to run that risk. Oh, I just realized the pouncing might be a bit loud. Sorry. It has a bit of melancholy to it. What do you think? You know, it looks a little bit sad. Maybe it's just because it's black and white and gray, but you know, there's nostalgia in there. Well, that's an understatement. Okay, I see directional lines here, so I'm going to exploit them and actually make them happen. So we have this here, this here. Those I really enjoy. There's an artist that you might want to look at. You might be able to find him online. I have 2 books of his here from the Walter Foster collection. These are instructional books, and guy's name, if I remember him correctly, is Gene Franks. And he's, you know, he paints and he well, I don't know if he paints actually, but the 2 books I have from him are drawings. You know, they're books of drawing, and his technique is very directional. He's got very subtle lines like this, but much more subtle than that. Actually, I'm lacking control right now. They tell you in which direction the ground flows. Because they're pencil lines, they can be a lot more subtle than this. This can actually do a hair size. I just pressed too hard, I guess. I'm gonna try to go back and do that again. Tip. Barely any. Ah, damn it. Still, it's good to have a variety of line, but I'm just trying to make a very light hairline. It's okay if I have to do it 60 times, it's just a bit frustrating. But yeah, he goes really gesturally, like kind of like that, but with more purpose to it, and you know, that's what I'm guessing anyways from the drawings. I never saw a video of him doing it. That's how I've been doing all these years since I saw his books. One is about portraits and the other one is about landscapes. In both cases, he uses a variety of graphite pencils, grades like 2B, 4B, 9B, and creates some nice, really nice tonal differences. From very light gray, well, from white of the paper to very light gray to very dark black. Actually, no, forget about the very dark black. J.D. Hilberry does this very dark black. You can find his stuff on YouTube. He's the one I learned from about, you know, because of his videos. He uses the Kimberly 9XXB, which is a graphite pencil, which has a lot of carbon in it. And it makes it flat black. And it makes it really dark, really black. So it's fantastic. So if you don't press too hard on your graphites for the rest of the drawing, the flat, you know, they won't get shiny. And then you finish with just a few spots of that black. My goodness, it's fantastic. I bought a box. I don't usually buy a box of pencils, but these ones, they were no longer selling them at the store. They said, well, we have a dozen left in the other store. If you want to buy them, we're gonna cut you a special deal. I got them for 50 cents each. Those run for $2 each normally. So I'm gonna have them for a while. I don't use them often, but I'm glad to have them in my pencil case. They really make the drawings pop. Especially pupils in the eyes. Very deep area where there might be no light whatsoever coming in, like here and here. I don't know. This painting is getting a bit busy, but again, I can go back and simplify. Although now I'm learning from doing it that making the scratch lines more subtle is not as easy as it sounds. Like right now I just ruined it again. Ruined the silhouette of my tree again because those highlights are just too much. They're not grabbing the ink properly. Now we have a perfect, almost a perfect line, which, you know, is a problem. Oh, that's better. I broke it off. Don't let your sable brush get too dry. And then when you're done painting with this stuff, wash them really well. Try to dry them upside down as much as possible. And then once a month, especially if you use them regularly, treat them with a little bit of hair conditioner. Leave them overnight or a few hours, and then rinse it off. I read somewhere you don't want to leave it in for too long. It could cause damage instead of helping. So, but it does help if you leave it for a few hours. I know that for a fact. I kept some old, cheap sable brushes. They were actually called Kolinsky, but I don't know if they were that good in reality, but they were in my reality because I used them a lot, and those I treated with the hair conditioner lasted years. I still have some, and that's 15 years ago that I bought that kit. It's a watercolor kit by a company called Yarka, and it came with 5 watercolor brushes that were labeled Kolinsky, which, you know, surprised me considering how expensive Kolinskys are. Giving them as free brushes, I was like, must be the low end of the Kolinskys, if there is such a thing, but I'm no specialist in those. All I know is that I like these brushes. This is just a sable brush. I'm not sure if it's Kolinsky or not. There's no label on it, but I don't care as long as they work. I just don't remember what I asked the artist who makes the brushes when I ordered them. Actually, I didn't ask for these specifically. He sent me a sample kit. I only asked for one specific brush, and I got it. It was much longer than I thought it would be, but it works exactly like I wanted it to, so it's a win. It's a definite win. 3 minutes until it makes a 2-hour video. I think I've pushed it long enough. I'm not gonna edit that video down. I don't yet have the skills for it, so nor the software. So I'm just gonna compress it, put it on YouTube, put a title on it if I can. If I have patience enough to let the editing software, Windows Live Movie Maker, load it. It's ridiculous how long it takes to load a file into that software. I sometimes lose patience and I just put the title on the YouTube thing. I would rather have it on the video itself, just in case people start sharing it and not share the original link. So I usually make sure that I do put the real title on it. But that limits me in the option of changing it later. Maybe I should just put my name. Umbergnome 2014. Well, actually, this is my first video of 2015. Good way to start the year, I think. Really proud of this. Those lines, however, are very, very bold. You know what to do. Scooby-Dooby-Doo. I'm diluting them a bit. I should probably use another brush for this. This one seems to be doing a good job. And when I dabbity-dabbity-dab-dab-dab, that will help also. I can rub some of them out. Some, not all. Yeah, that's better. Subtlety is working against me. Subtlety, it wants to bring me down. There you go. I forgot this trick, but I'm going to give it to you, because now I remember. Squint your eyes, people. Squint your eyes when you're drawing, when you're composing something. And you'll see things disappear because of the eyelashes. And it will simplify your shades. It will simplify your values and everything. And then you'll see that some things might pop out, like the pure white here, the 3 highlights on the top of the tree here. These are very clumps of bright white. There's a bright here, so I think I want to tone that down as well. Until I see a nice, until your eye is gonna travel around the picture in a harmonious way, which I think is, a journey, a visual journey through what you're doing. So I'm glad I just remembered that, because it's not logical that this patch of ground be brighter than or as bright almost as the brightest spot. So there you go. Let's bring it down as a subtler area. Let's darken that part as well. Nice. Don't think you want to push with the wild hair on a brush like this at the price it could be. So there you go. Now I'm sure some of you have fast forwarded the video. I'm sure I would do it. So if you missed anything, always go back and check it out. But if you have any questions about what I've done, why I'm doing it and how I'm doing it, please just ask and I'll try to reply. I mean, I will reply, but, if I see a message. Sometimes YouTube is funny that way. Sometimes I'll see a comment like months and months after it was posted, despite having set it up to receive all notifications. Sometimes they get lost. I do check manually on each video once in a while, but yeah, sometimes it might escape me. So yeah, as soon as I see it, I'll try to reply. I have about 65 subscribers, so I think I can keep up for now. Eventually, if it gets bigger, then maybe not. But for now I can manage. Whoa, look at that little squiggle. I'm feeling good about this painting. So, thank you for watching. I'm really glad that I was able to share this with you and that I got some kind of result in such a short time. I'm usually a slow painter. I enjoy it that way, but sometimes you want to do it quick. So yeah, it's a good thing that I decided to stick to one more video tonight, just in case it would work, and it did. So yeah, I'm never sure of what it's going to be before I start, so glad this is what happened. So again, if you have any feedback, positive or negative, be constructive if you want to be negative, please. And yeah, that way I'll be able to improve faster and better with your help, because I'm doing it for you, because I think it's fun to share not just the art techniques, but the relaxation that I get from watching videos like this. So there you go. Thanks again. Relax and rest well, and I will be back soon with another video. I don't know of what type yet. I always do it on a whim. Soon I'll have a list of what I want to do, and I'll be whimmy about which one I choose to do first. So thank you. If you want to see a close-up picture of this, I will be posting a picture somewhere, and the link will be in the description.